Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at something fascinating, but maybe a little unsettling too.
Oh, unsettling is right.
It's those hidden dangers that can be lurking in some vaping products. You might have heard of THCO acetate, right?
Right. It's a synthetic cannabinoid.
Yeah, and it's gotten pretty popular lately, but did you know when this compound gets heated, like when you're vaping, it can create something called ketene?
And that's where things get a little dicey. Ketene, it's a toxic gas.
Seriously toxic.
Seriously.
So today we're going to unpack the chemistry behind it all and explore the potential health risks and really see what all this means for vaping safety regulations.
Yeah, because when we say ketene is toxic, we really mean it. Even tiny amounts, they can be dangerous.
Why?
It's highly reactive, a colorless gas, and it belongs to this whole family of organic compounds that are known for their really unusual structure,
Yeah.
and they really like to form strong bonds with other molecules.
Okay, so imagine you're taking a puff from your vape pen, thinking you're going to relax, but without realizing it, you're inhaling this toxic gas with every inhale.
Exactly. And a lot of people, they might be vaping these cannabinoid acetates without even knowing the risks.
So how does this chemical transformation even happen? It sounds like, one of those sci-fi movies where you heat something up and it turns into this completely different, dangerous thing.
Well, it's really about how heat changes those molecular structures. So when cannabinoid acetates, like THCO acetate, they get heated up during vaping and they go through this chemical
So
reaction.
it's not just heating something up.
No, it's not that simple. Specific bonds get broken, new ones form, and you get ketene as a byproduct.
So like baking a cake. You start with your ingredients, heat them up, and boom, something totally different.
I guess the analogy works to a point, but with ketone, it's way more complex than baking a cake. This is about breaking and reforming bonds at a molecular level. It all happens at very specific temperatures, and that resulting ketone, it's highly reactive. It can really impact the body.
So we've got this ketone forming right there in your vape pen, but let's zoom out for a sec. What about the bigger picture of vaping hazards?
Right, because it's not just ketone. There's this whole mix of chemicals in that aerosol that people are inhaling. And the long-term effects, we just don't know about a lot of them.
It's kind of scary.
It's like a giant science experiment, and we're all in it, but we don't even know the consequences.
That's a sobering thought. And speaking of consequences, what about the dangers of actually inhaling ketone? What does that do?
Well, it's really bad for your respiratory system. Ketone is so reactive that it can actually bind to and damage those delicate tissues in your lungs.
Every puff.
Exactly. And the research on the long-term effects of inhaling it, well, there's not a lot. We're just starting to understand how bad it could be. Makes you wonder, what can we even do about this? I mean, how do we protect people from these hidden dangers?
Yeah, it does feel like the Wild West out there with all these vaping products, right?
Mhm.
Like they hit the shelves before we even know what's in them, let alone if they're safe.
Yeah, and that's where regulations come in, right?
Right.
The FDA, they've got a huge role to play in making sure that vaping products are safe. The problem is the market, it's changing so fast. New substances, new devices, it's hard for anyone to keep up.
It sounds like an impossible task almost.
Mhm.
What are they doing to keep up with these changes?
Well, one thing is to really focus on those pre-market approvals.
Mm.
Right now, a lot of products, they get on the market without much safety testing.
Mm.
But if we had more data, on what's in them, what byproducts they make before they're even sold, that could help a lot.
It makes sense, but what about the stuff that's already out there? What about the people using products that are already on the shelves?
You're right. That's where post-market surveillance is so important.
Okay.
What if the FDA, what if they invested in new testing methods? Ones that could quickly identify harmful substances in these products, even after they're being sold.
So like something that could detect ketone right there in the store.
Exactly.
That would be incredible. I mean, it sounds futuristic,
A bit, yeah.
but I guess we were talking about like sci-fi vaping substances here, so.
That's true. And while those technologies are, still being developed, there are things that people can do right now to protect themselves.
Like what? What would you tell our listeners? Like the people out there who vape or are thinking about it?
Be informed. That's number one. Don't just assume something's safe because it says natural on the label or you bought it in a store. Do your research. What are the ingredients? Read reviews. Try to understand the risks.
So it's about taking control,
Right.
not rely on someone else to tell you what's okay.
Absolutely. And remember, we're still learning about the long-term effects of all of this, especially with the newer substances.
So even if it doesn't have ketene, there might be other risks we just don't know about yet.
Exactly. You got to be cautious, be aware, and if something feels wrong or you feel any side effects, don't wait, get medical advice.
So in this case, knowledge really is power.
It is. The more you know, the better choices you can make.
But okay, let's zoom out again. What about the bigger picture? We talked about regulations, personal responsibility. Are there other ways to deal with these hidden dangers in vaping?
Well, that's where advocacy comes in. Collective action. People can support organizations that are pushing for stricter rules, that are holding these companies accountable. Talk to your elected officials, let them know your concern. We can actually make a difference if we work together.
It's not about just waiting for someone else to fix it.
No, exactly.
We can be part of this solution. But with all this talk about dangers and risks, it's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed. I mean, is there any good news here? Any reason to be optimistic about all of this?
There is. Harm reduction strategies are being developed. Researchers are figuring out ways to change the devices, the liquids even, to make them produce fewer harmful compounds.
So it's not just about avoiding vaping completely. It's about making it safer for people who choose to do it.
Exactly. And that's an important distinction because let's be real, prohibition doesn't always work. Focusing on harm reduction, that's what can actually make a difference for public health.
That's a really interesting point. It's not like black or white, right? There are different ways to approach all this.
And that's what makes this such a complex and interesting topic. There's so much we still need to learn, but the more we understand, the better decisions we can make and the safer we can make vaping for everyone.
Sounds like a lot of work ahead to make vaping safer. But we've got a long way to go, right?
Oh, for sure. And we can't forget, even with these harm reduction things, vaping still has risks.
Right.
There's no such thing as a totally safe vape.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
I'd say the biggest thing is knowledge is power when it comes to this stuff. Don't just believe the hype.
Yeah.
Do your research, know the risks, and make smart choices about what you're putting in your body.
It's like being a smart shopper, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that just because something says natural doesn't mean it is.
Exactly. And this is an ongoing thing. The whole vaping scene changes all the time. New information's coming out. Stay informed, stay curious, and most importantly, stay safe.
Great advice. So we've uncovered this hidden danger in some vaping products. Ketene, we talked about how it forms, the risks, and what people and even regulators can do about it. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought. With all these new vaping substances popping up, how do we make sure they're safe without stopping innovation completely? It's a tough question, but one we need to think about. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, stay safe.